First we'll have a look at the finishing stove. This is turned on now and the letters have been laid on so that they are as flat as possible on the stove, so that the maximum amount of heat can get into them. They do take about 10 minutes to warm up from cold, so you don't want to hurry them too much. But if they don't seem to be heating very fast, you can turn them around a bit. You just need to make sure that with something like the U, you've got both points flat on the stove. Don't push them too close, don't push them right up to the plate, or you will find that the handles burn because they are wood. So the letters need to be onto the plate about, 2 centimetres, nearly an inch, to heat enough, but no more. And make sure that when you are picking them up, you don't accidentally push the others forward, so that they so that the handle comes forward and they burn. When they're hot enough, they will hiss slightly. I will just touch them onto the cooling pad and you might be able to hear the hiss. That means that they're hot enough. That's an I, that will heat up quite quickly. The bigger letters may take a bit longer. Let's try this one. Yes, I can just hear a slight hiss there. When they're hissing, then they're quite hot enough and we can use them. Before we start tooling, we need to know what we're doing. So I've selected the letters for the title for the case-bound book, which is just quite simply bookbinding, which is easy enough, and Paul Haslook, so I'll put his name in there. And so I'm going to do a label for this. It's possible to do it on the book, and I might possibly do it on the book anyway, and if it doesn't work I'll put the label on, but it's easier to show you with a label, not the book itself. Before doing anything else, you need to know how long your letters are going to be. So what I usually do is start off doing a dummy run with pencil and, the pencil line, and using a stamp pad, which is an ordinary ink pad. You need to make sure that you wipe the ink off the letters as soon as you've used them. The face I'm using is 14-point Edinburgh. It's a good all-round face. There are limitless numbers of them, but you want something, if you're going to get these handle letters, you want to get something that can be used in every context. So just a light inking and a rock backwards and forwards, and wipe the letter and put it back where it came from. 2 O's now, so I can do those fairly close together. The spacing of the lettering is something which you just get with practice. It's I can't emphasise enough how important it is to practice this, because there is no other way that you will learn to do it properly. You can see that we're lining things up to the head of the letter, the top of the letter, not the lower end. You don't sit the letters on the line, you hang them from it. That's because when you are putting the letter on, sorry, I've lost the eye. When you're putting the letter down, the little nick on the, which you probably can't see on the film, but the little nick on the top tells you that's the top of the letter, and you need to be able to see where you're going. So I can see the line here and rock it slowly. If it was on the top, it's much harder to see because your hand's in the way. I'm not sure how easily you can see the letters from there. I won't do the whole thing, I'll just do this first word. Slightly skewed, I'll do it again. And of course the main problem about this is getting your letters straight, but again that is simply practicing, and you just need to work on it until you can do it without thinking too hard. There are other ways of doing this, of course. You can do lettering in a completely different manner. You can print things on computers. You can use a what's called a type holder, where you've got the loose type in the holder, and you can also use a blocking press, but I rather like handle letters. I'm just going to do the rest of this pattern. I'll switch this off now, and then when we're ready to heat the letters up, I'll come back again. So I've got my bit of leather here. It's a thin bit of red leather, which will look nice on the book. And I've made sure that the title will fit on the book, which it will. It's also a good idea to keep this first version handy because it's very easy to make spelling mistakes. I've cut a piece of foil from this roll of gold foil. Note this is foil, not leaf. And I'm now going to cut a thin strip, which is a bit more manoeuvrable than the whole thing. So I'm just going to cut that down there and keep as straight a line as possible along the edge. And that's because the edge is the guideline. It's the guideline for the tops of the letters, and if you tool letters onto the middle of a piece of foil like this, you will find that the carrier will distort, and what looks right on the original bit of foil does not look right once you take the foil off, because you find that although the letters look right on the foil itself, it's been distorted and they're all over the place. I'm going to just test these. I think they're probably all right by now. You just hear that hiss. It's got to stop hissing and shake the water off. And line up your letter with the top of the gold foil and making sure using the nip that it's straight, and rock it gently backwards and forwards. The pressure is very much a matter of experience. You have got to combine the heat of the letter, its size, the moisture content of the leather, and various other imponderable factors such as what you're actually feeling like yourself, and all those things combine to make a success or not of your tooling. But the pressure is to some extent dependent on the size of the letter. Very small letters don't need much pressure at all. Larger letters will need a lot. It's like the elephant and the stiletto heel in comparison. And I'm putting a moderate amount of pressure. Again, it's something you just have to practice. Note that when we get the letter to hiss, it's got to stop hissing. It's not hissing itself, it's just where it stops hissing, which is the right temperature. That said, some foils are in fact very sensitive and you need very little heat at all. You don't want to overheat your letters anyway. It's not very good for them. As I said, I'm using foil here, not leaf. Gold leaf is a completely different matter, and you want to watch a specialist doing that. And although that's a little bit crooked, I can correct that. And although you can, the thing to do with gold leaf is just start and experiment and do some, but it is something which is very difficult to do, and you do need a lot of practice. You can't just pick it up and do it. Some people can, but where are we book by? And as I said, spelling is a point. You need to make sure you know where you are. I have to confess that I did this once. I've done this once already, and I spelt it wrong, so I think I'd better do it properly. D, G. This is the little leaf which I'm going to put in between the name and the title and the name of the author. You can of course put the author's name in a smaller letter, that's perfectly acceptable. But I'm not going to bother about that here. The main thing of course is to keep your letters straight, which takes practice. You need to get them spaced correctly. That's largely a matter of practice as well. The amount of space taken up by the U as opposed to the I is quite considerable. So you want to make sure that you space them, leave enough space. If say you have 4 letters, you can't just say I've got 4 letters and space them accordingly. You need to put them where it's supposed. Need to put enough space where the H is, for instance. I'm just about to put the H in now. That is much wider than the L, the T and the I. H, M, W are all very wide letters and take up a great deal more space. but that is something which you learn, and also each typeface is different. This one is Edinburgh. It's a good standard face, but it just depends very much on what you happen to have. But if in doubt, if you are starting off, get something that is all-purpose. You don't want to get something weird because you won't use it very much. Also, always get, if you're going to do tooling seriously, get new tools. It's no good trying to use old, worn-out ones. They just don't work. And you will never get good results with old tools, even the ones that have been filed down and sort of reconstituted, which some people will try to persuade you is perfectly acceptable, but I don't think it is, really. It's something of a false economy, I'm afraid. So I've nearly finished that, and let's go back to the K. I do keep my letters on the stove in the order in which I'm using them. Some people like alphabetical order, but I like to put them where I've used them, and then when I need another, in this case a second K, I know exactly where it is. So let's finish that. Let's see what's happened. It's not too bad. It's a bit some of the letters are a bit hot. That's why they look a bit blurred, but I can probably get rid of that just by rubbing over with the thumb. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I think that's not too bad. You can always do a bit of tweaking if you find that, for instance, there's a bit on the B which is missing there. I'm going to cut off a bit of the foil and just insert it over the B. I'm going to put the tool back in. I can feel where the letter ought to be, and I'm just going to tool it up like that, just to complete the letter, make it a little bit more clear. The K is very slightly crooked there, so I think I'm going to just straighten it a tiny bit. So I'm going to put the tool back into the K and then just very slightly twist it and tool down there, and that will give you that will make it look that much straighter. So I think that's reasonably all right. I'm just going to, with a knife point, take out those extra bits. That blurring, as I say, was because the letters were slightly hot, and in fact I'm going to put in the point of the A there as well. Yeah. So that's in like that. That's better. So that's my label, and I think it will look quite nice. Oops. I think it will look quite nice on the book, so I'll cut it off and stick it on later on. I've set the book up now in the press. I've got my measurements. I've made sure that I know that my title is going to come in the middle of the book, in the centre of it, that is, widthwise. I know the head's that end, and that's the way it should be, certainly in this country, so that when the book's flat on the table with its front upwards, you can see the title. So I'm just going to push this back a little bit so I can get at it, and I'm going to start at the end and see if it will work on the cloth. Book cloth is not always very easy to title on. It sometimes just doesn't really work, and it's often there's quite a strong weave on this one, and it may mean that the title just doesn't come out very well. So if it doesn't work, I'll simply use the label that I've made already. Lost my K. Yeah. Sometimes they get out of order, which is you have to be a bit careful about. But the process of actually putting the words down, the tools down, is exactly the same whether you're using leaf or whether you're using foil. It's just the whole sort of preparation is completely different. And you can't use gold foil on or a gold leaf on cloth very easily. It's because you've got to prepare the surface with glare and all that sort of thing, and it just doesn't really work. Foil was invented for cloth anyway. Originally, when you had cloth bindings, the titles were put on by machine, and the entire roll of foil would be used to print a pattern, or those rather nice, those rather nice Victorian book covers that you see. They were all printed by machine, and foil was sort of invented then, and that's basically what it's for. But it works perfectly well as a hand medium as well. However, I forgot to bookbind it. The finishing press, incidentally, just as a matter of interest, has these cutaway sides, so that as you're tooling, you can get your hand over as you're tooling the lines across, and that's why it's the shape it is. And I've put my bits of masking tape here in because it tends to slip about, and as the edge is the guideline, you don't want it to slip at all, because otherwise your line will be askew. But I'm quite prepared for this not really to work, because it is a rather grainy cloth, as I said. It's rather a nice one, but it's not one I've used before, so I'm not quite sure how it's going to react. You have to be rather careful with all the materials you use. It's a good idea to get to know your materials and use them. It's very easy to get excited about new papers and things, but you find that they react in different ways that you didn't expect them to, and so it's a good idea to just get to know them before using them on something that's really important. You notice that although I'm going fairly fast, I'm making sure that each corner of the letter is quite firmly down, and it's no good just sort of stamping it in. You need to rock it forwards and backwards and sideways. And although I was a bit faster than you'll probably be, don't rush at it. It's like everything else. You don't want to be in so much of a hurry that you're not doing it properly. And just here we've got the last one now. A nice thing about doing this actually is that you know perfectly well if it doesn't work, you can easily stick a label over the top, and it'll be perfectly acceptable. That said, gold on blue always looks very nice, so I would like it to work, but if it doesn't, it doesn't. Oh, that's not too bad. Again, it's a bit hot, and I may not be able to get that off very satisfactorily, but let's see. Oh yeah, that's going to come away all right. You'll see that there were just some sort of rather fluffy bits there. Yes, it's the sort of round letters that tend to hold the heat quite a lot. And the D and the G and the B, when you've got the bowls of the letters, they're the ones that really hold the heat a bit. I think that's quite presentable, really. I think I'll leave it like that. I'll do a bit more fiddling about, but and I might possibly just K is a bit. Yes, I can do that now actually. Same problem as last time, so it's obviously something I tend to do. What you can also do is scrape out. I'm just going to twist it round a fraction. Better. And you can also take out a little bit of the upright that's making it look like that. So that's straighten that. I'll put a little bit more on the S as well. So I'll tweak it about a bit, but I think on the whole that's reasonably satisfactory.